Welcome to Drive the Daf. Clear, structured explanation of the daily Daf in 20 minutes. You can even follow in the car.
Pesachim Daf Zayin contains four primary sugyas. The first is a discussion of whether or not you can do bittul chametz once the chametz is already forbidden midirabanan. That means, can you declare it valueless? Can you declare it insignificant at a time when you no longer own it midirabanan? Then we get to the discussion of a piece of bread or matzah that you can't tell what it is because it's moldy. Do you follow the assumptions of what the majority of bread around then is, or do you go by what the most recent installment of bread was? Gemara then discusses the correct bracha for searching for chametz. That'll include a discussion of whether a bracha should be said before a mitzvah is performed or afterwards, and what text of bracha implies that order. And then the Gemara wants to know, how do you know that B'dikas chametz has to be done to the light of a candle? What is the source for that? And the Gemara will discuss that. So first of all, we're discussing bittul chametz. It means declaring it valueless, ownerless, useless, insignificant, like dirt. And the Gemara had said that from the time that the chametz becomes asur, you can no longer declare it insignificant because it's not yours anymore. It's not in your jurisdiction to be able to declare it valueless or not. The Gemara said that this is true even when it's only asur chametz midirabanan. So the Gemara brings a statement to support that from Rav Gidel named Rav Chibur Yosef name of Rav. Somebody who is mekadesh a woman, he gives her grains of wheat, even a very hard grain like kordenisa grain, and he says here harat mikudeshesli, he's trying to marry her with that. That means it has to belong to him in order for kiddushin to work. He has to give her something that belongs to him. So if it's from the 6th hour and on Erev Pesach, you don't have to worry, there is no Kedushin there, she's free to go marry somebody else. Now, the Gemara is supposed to be finding a time where it's only Asur Midirabanan. The problem is from the 6th hour, it's Asur Midiraisa. So Rashi says the 6th hour here doesn't mean the end of the 6th hour like it usually does. Here it means the beginning of the 6th hour, and therefore it's only Asur Midirabanan. Tosfos understands that this special wheat, kordenisa, because it's so hard, even when it gets wet, it's not chametz midaraisa, it's only chametz midarabanan. Either way, so you have an issur darabanan here, and it still says that it doesn't belong to him. Now the Gemara says, okay, I understand you're proving to me that chametz doesn't belong to him, but how can you tell me that you can't do bittul? I have a clear brisa that says you could. Brisa says if somebody's sitting in the Beis Medrash on Shabbos or Yom Tov, and he remembers he has chametz in his house, and what should he do? So he should just be mevatel it. He should think that I'm mevatel it, it's valueless to me, and it's useless to me. Now, that clearly says you can do bittul even on Yom Tov. So Gemara says this is not talking about real chametz. This is talking about a dough which is on its way to becoming Yom Tov, and he can't go home and bake it before it becomes chametz. It's the dough is on its way to becoming chametz, and he can't go home and bake it before it becomes chametz. Why not? Because he's sitting in the Beis Medrash listening to shir. He can't get up and leave. That's why he should just be mevatel it, and that's why he's allowed to, because it's not chametz yet. Once it's chametz, then it's already not his, and he can no longer be mevatel it. Gemara says that this is obvious if you look carefully towards the brisa. It says he was sitting in the Beis Medrash. What do I care where he was sitting? What if he wants to do bittul chametz, let him do bittul chametz. What's the issue? The point is that it's not chametz yet, but he can't get home on time in order to prevent it from becoming chametz. That's what the issue is. Okay, now we go to the next sugya here, which is a discussion about you have a piece of bread. Now, bread again is a general word which could refer to chametz or matzah, and you have one that became moldy. So the question is it chametz or is it matzah? You cannot tell. And the Gemara is going to get into the sugya of where you have something you can't figure out what it is, or you don't know what it is. Do you follow the majority, or do you follow the most recent? Those are two possible ways of determining what you should assume the halachic status of something is. So the Gemara begins with a statement of Rabbi Bar Rav Huna, name of Rav. You have moldy bread, and this is found in a box where you used to keep your chametz and your matzah. You keep them both there, chametz during the year, matzah on Pesach. Obviously, you found this on Pesach itself. So Rabbi Bar Rav Huna says that the halacha is that you go by the majority. You count up all the bread that's in the box all year round. If it's majority chametz, you assume it's chametz. If it's majority matzah, you assume it's matzah. Meaning you go by the riv. So the Gemara says that doesn't make sense. You should follow the last. You should follow the most recent. The most recent thing you kept here is matzah. We could assume that you got rid of all the chametz. You cleaned out all the chametz when you did bedikas chametz. Now the Gemara is going to prove that in a case where things are generally replaced chronologically as you use you don't bring in the next one until you replace the old one, until you get rid of the old one, or you remove old things every day, or at a set time, then you should follow the last thing. You shouldn't follow the majority, you should follow the last. And the Gemara is going to prove this from the case of Meiser Sheni money. Now, Meiser Sheni money, again, there are certain fruits throughout the year that become Meiser Sheni that can only be eaten in Yerushalayim. You can transfer that Kedusha onto money, which is what people would generally do, and take the money to Yerushalayim. Then you can only spend that money on things you're going to eat in Yerushalayim. So you have Meiser Sheni money all over Yerushalayim. Now, what happened with it? So people came with their Meiser Sheni money during the Regel, during Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot, and therefore there was a lot of Meiser Sheni money around then. They didn't manage to spend it all. They left it with relatives who live in Yerushalayim, and those relatives usually bought karbanos with it. They bought animals. So the question is, you find coins on the floor somewhere in Yerushalayim. Do you have to assume that it's Meiser Sheni coins, and therefore you can only use it for fruits that you eat in Yerushalayim? Or can you assume that it's regular coins and you can do whatever you want with it? So the Brisa divides Yerushalayim into three zones. In front of animal merchants, it's always assumed to be Meiser Sheni money because a large number of people all year round have Meiser Sheni money from people who left it with them, and they generally buy karbanos with it. So animals are almost always bought with Meiser Sheni money in Yerushalayim. Now, that's one zone. Next zone is on the Harabayis. Harabayis, the Brisa explains, you could always assume that it is not Meiser Sheni. Why? Because all year round you assume that the money that's there, the vast majority of the money in any place which is not the animal merchant, is not Meiser Sheni money. Why would I assume that it is? Since the majority is not Meiser Sheni money, so then you follow the halacha of majority, and therefore you assume that the money which is in Harabayis is not Meiser Sheni money. Now, the streets of Yerushalayim are different. The streets of Yerushalayim are swept out every day. And therefore, you have to assume that the money which you're finding there came that day, because yesterday's money was already swept when they cleaned it last night. Therefore, if you find money there during the Regel, during one of the Yom Tov when people bring a lot of Meiser Sheni money to Yerushalayim, you should assume that it's Meiser Sheni money. If, however, you find it any other time, you could assume that the Meiser Sheni money was already swept away, and that this is money which is not Meiser Sheni money, and you do not follow the rover, you follow the most recent psak. So you see here clearly, the halacha is that when something is removed on a daily basis, you follow the most recent. You do not assume the halacha is what it was majority. So why? The question then is, would Rabbah say that this bread here is assumed to be what the majority of bread placed in this box is? It should be the most recent, because the bread box is cleaned out often, and it's especially cleaned out when you do bedikas chametz. So the Gemara answers, well, because it's moldy, it shows that it was here for a long time, and it couldn't have come on Pesach, it had to come before Pesach. The Gemara says, well, then it's definitely chametz. Why would you assume that it's matzah at all? The Gemara says, no. So when Rabbah said that it's rabsa, that it's the majority, you follow the majority of the breads, he didn't mean majority. The word rabsa could also mean a lot. He meant to say that if it's a lot of days into Pesach, it's near the end of Pesach, so then it could have become matzah and still be so moldy. Then that's why, in a case like that, because the mold could have come from a bread which is matzah, that's why you should assume that it is matzah. It's because it's most recent, and the mold is not a problem because it's been there for a long time. Gemara says, well, that being the case, so then that's back to we're back to being obvious. What is the chiddush then, for sure? So my answer is, we're talking about a situation where it's very moldy, and it's more logical that it was there from before Pesach. However, since it was a lot of days of Pesach, it could be that the mold was accelerated by the fact that you kept on baking warm matzah and putting it in the box, and the warmth accelerated the mold growth. Meaning, the fact that it's cleaned out is not the issue here. The issue here is that the mold seems to indicate that it was there from before, but the mold could technically have come in a very short time, and that's the chiddush here. That's Rabbah's chiddush, that since it's there for a long time, we don't say that you could assume that it's matzah. Okay. Now the Gemara says, hold on a second. You're claiming here that we always follow the last thing. Is that really true? We have a brisa that seems to indicate otherwise. The brisa talks about Meiser Sheni money found in a box. And again, this is a box which is used alternately for Meiser Sheni money, and it is used for regular chulin money. And the question is, you find a coin there, you don't know what it is. So what should you assume it is? So the Gemara brings a brisa that says that the halacha is that you go bas roiv. If the majority of the money put in this box throughout the year is Meiser Sheni money, then you assume it's Meiser Sheni of chulin. So the Gemara says, what happened to your halacha that you should assume that it was from the last pile that was in the box? The Gemara gives three answers. The Gemara says, one answer is that You don't remember what it was used for last. Another answer is that it was used for Meiser Sheni and Chulin together, in separate heaps, obviously, but together, and therefore you don't know which pile this coin came from. It rolled off. It was found in between. The last answer is that it was found in a hole, in a crack in the box, and it could have been there for a very long time, and you missed it when you cleaned it out the last time. Okay, the Gemara now talks about the halacha of saying a bracha. So we know that B'dikas comes as a mitzvah gets a bracha. And the question is, what is the text of the bracha? Bracha ta Hashem is for sure. The question is it liva'er chametz, to destroy chametz, or al bi'or chametz? Liva'er chametz is Rav Papi's opinion. Al bi'or chametz is Rav Papa's opinion. The Gemara says everybody agrees that liva'er chametz is good. The question is al bi'or chametz good enough as well? What's the issue? The issue is that you always have to say a bracha before you do the mitzvah, and therefore the text of the bracha should be indicating that you're about to do something. It should be on the future. Liva'er chametz, to destroy chametz, that is something which is clearly referring to what you're about to do. I'm about to destroy chametz. The question is, al bi'or chametz, are you thanking Hashem, praising Hashem on the destruction, on the mitzvah of destroying chametz? That seems to indicate that it was in the past, that it happened already. That would be no good. Therefore, according to Rav Papi, according to Rav Papa, no, it's fine. It still indicates just as well that it's in the future. You could say it before you're about to do the mitzvah. That's okay. Now, the Gemara has kashas on Rav Papi from a number of mitzvahs where we do say the bracha of al something instead of li something. We say on instead of to do. And the question is on each of these, why? According to Rav Papi, that's no good. That indicates that it's something which you did already. So how do you explain this? So the first one, the Gemara asks, and we're going to have three such kashas, four. The first one is on a mila. We say, al hamila. Why don't we say lamul? So Gemara says, no, the mayol is not responsible to do the mila. The mitzvah of mila is on the father. And therefore, he can't say that I have a mitzvah to do the milah. That means that it's my mitzvah, it's not his mitzvah. He's just doing it for the father. Therefore, he can't say lamul, he has to say al mitzvahs. The Gemara says, well, then what about if the father is the one who's doing the milah? So the Gemara says, yes, Rav Papi would say, then in that case, he should say lamul. That is not the halacha. We do say al mitzvahs, we don't paskin like Rav Papi in the end. Okay, then the Gemara says, next one is shchita. Why do we say al hashchita? We should say lishchait. The Gemara says, well, again, there's no obligation to shecht. Somebody else could shecht. Anybody could shecht. So the slaughtering is not a mitzvah. You can't. The phraseology lishchait, to do, not only implies future, it also implies that you're obligated. So you can't say that. You just have to say al hashchita, on the shchita. The Gemara says, well, what about Karban Pesach and Kachim, where the owner is responsible to shech? The Gemara says, yes, there a Papi would say that you should say lishchait. Okay, now what about lulav? So on lulav, we know that when you make the lulav, you say shechianu. That's not halacha, but that's what this brisa says. When you make the lulav, you say shechianu, and then when you pick it up in order to be yaitzu it, you say al netilas lulav. So you should say litol halulav. So Rav Papi says here is different because you picked it up and you're saying the bracha afterwards. So in this case, you're really saying the bracha after. So you should use a language which implies after, that you did the mitzvah already. The Gemara says, well, what do you mean? Look at the language of the brisa. It says, "Netoloi lotzis," but he picked it up to be yaitze for it. That sounds like he's coming to be yaitze now. He's not yaitze yet. So the Gemara says it's imprecise language. It's really that he picked it up first and he's saying the bracha afterwards. The reason why he uses that imprecise is because of the second half of the brisa, which is talking about the mitzvah of sukkah. And there it says, when you make the sukkah, you say shechianu. When you go into it, you say to sit in the sukkah. And over there, you're saying the bracha before you actually, you're going into it. That's why I use this imprecise language. So the Gemara says that halacha really is, we see from everybody here, both Rav Papa and Rav Papi agree that you do have to say the bracha. You're supposed to say the bracha, unless you're stuck. You're supposed to say it before you do the mitzvah itself. That's called Oiver L'Asiyasin. What is the source for that? So Rav Yehuda Mishmuel says, called mitzvah bracha and Oiver L'Asiyasin. Every mitzvah you have to do Oiver L'Asiyasin. The Gemara says, what does Oiver mean? You mean before you do it? What does the word Oiver mean? So the Gemara says, Oiver means before. And I'll prove it to you from 3 psukim. Vayaras Achimad's derech ha-kikor vayavar as-hakushi. He passed the kushi, meaning he went in front of the kushi. Vayavar means in front. Abaye says, Hu over lefneim, Yaakov went in front of his family to meet Esav. And the third pasuk is Vayaver Malkam lefneim. Mashiach goes before the congregation, and therefore the word over again means before. Now, the Gemara says there's an exception to the rule that a bracha has to be said before the mitzvah. Beirav says the exceptions are tefillah, going to a mikvah, and shofar, blowing shofar. So now mikvah we understand. You can't say the bracha before you go to the mikvah. You have a certain level of tumah you're trying to take off, and that tumah prevents you from saying the bracha. You have to say the bracha afterwards. But shofar, what does shofar have to do with anything? Why can't you say the bracha before? So Gemara says, well, maybe the tekiyah, the blowing is not going to work. So you'll say the bracha and it's not going to work. You should first blow, so you see that it worked, and then say the bracha. So if that's the case, maybe the shechita won't be good. Maybe the milah won't be good. You shouldn't be able to say the bracha then either. So Gemara says, so this is a mistake. No, really, shofar you could say the bracha before. The only issue is tevilah. Gemara brings a brisa like that. Somebody who goes to the mikvah comes out, and he says, al ha-tevilah. Okay. That ends that. So the Gemara now refers back to the Mishnah where we saw you're supposed to do b'dikas chametz at the light of a candle. The Gemara says, what is the source for this light of a candle? The Gemara says it's a connection of various psukim. We have a pasuk talking about mitzia, which is connected to another one talking about mitzia. Mitzia is connected to the word chipos. Chipos is connected to another chipos, which is connected to the word ner and to the word neris. What are these psukim? And here the Gemara brings it, and the Gemara brings a brisa which repeats these exact derivations. So we begin with the pasuk talking about destroying chametz. It says Shivas Yamas Arli Yimatzei B'Vatechem. So you see the word matzah is talking about destroying chametz, and then in the pasuk searching for the cup in Binyamin's rucksack, it says V'Yechapes B'Gadol Heichel V'Katan Kilo V'Yimtza. So you see a connection between the word matzah and chipos. So now we're at chipos. Then we go from there. We have Bo'esahi Achapis as Yerushalayim Baneros. Hashem says, I'm going to search for sins of Yerushalayim Baneros by candlelight. So you see the word Chapis is connected to candles, and that's how we've connected looking for chametz to candles. We also can connect the word Chapis to candle, single. Another pasuk says, Ner Hashem Nishmas Adam Chaypes Kol Chadri Batan. Candle of Hashem is the soul of a man. He searches all of man's hiddenmost chambers. Okay, now the brisa fills this in as well, and the Gemara wants to know, why do you need two psukim of Neiros? So why do you need Ner separately and Neiros separately? It seems to be the same thing. The Gemara says, you're right, I don't need it just because one is plural, one is singular. The reason why I need it is because the pasuk of Hashem looking for sins at the light of the candle, you could have understood that's trying to say that candlelight is a bad light to look for. Hashem doesn't want to find sins, and therefore he's using poor light. Therefore, I need the other pasuk to show that no. Even a candle is good light. And the reason why he's using it is because he's using a good light, not because he's using a bad.
Drive the Daf is a project of the Grand Woodlands Shul and is presented by Rabbi Yitzchak Landa. Find us on YouTube or subscribe to daily emails by emailing drivethedaf@gmail.com.